graduation. So everything from admission all the way to graduation, our office handles that. And that's like schedules, getting registered, your fees, financial aid, all of that kind of stuff. If you want to see everything we cover and how we can help, if you go to My Lambton and then up at the top, go to the registration and finances menu, you can see the overview there. One other thing I wanted to mention is our office hours. So we're normally open 8:30 to 4:30. In the summer, our office hours are 8:30 to 4, and that's Monday to Friday. So as far as what an ESP is, basically like the whole point of an ESP is just you've got this kind of one contact for pretty much everything in the office. So as opposed to an office where you have like an admissions person and a registration person and a financial aid person, you have this like one go-to contact from the time you apply to the time you graduate. And so there are about 5 of us, I believe, in the office who essentially all have the same job. We just have different bundles of programs. And same thing, if you want to see exactly how we can help, if you go to My Lambton and registration and finances and click on how we can help, you'll be able to see that there. And also most emails you're going to get from us, most of the generic like email blasts over the summer are going to have a little contact link right at the bottom. If you're not sure who your ESP is, you can go to the contact link, find your program, and that'll tell you who to talk to. So some of the dates and deadlines that are coming up. One of the big ones that's not on here, but June 21st is the deadline to pay your tuition deposit. And one thing I wanted to note about that, it's a $300 deposit, counts towards your tuition, so that's $300 less you'll owe in September. And if you are going to be getting OSAP and you're not able to pay the deposit, there's a waiver you can fill out. You can find that under the financial aid menu on My Lambton, or you can email your ESP. Another big date that's coming up is orientation week, which is going to be the end of August and early September. That's the week before classes start. Keep an eye on your emails for more information about that. September 7th is the first day of class. September 20th is the 10th day of class. So if you ever hear people talk about day 10, that's what that is. And that's the last day to make any schedule changes. So it's the last day you can add a course. It's the last day you can withdraw from a course and get a refund, transfer credit requests, all of that stuff. That's also the last day to pay fall tuition fees. You can see those dates at lambtoncollege.ca/academic dates, or you can also find them under the registration and finances link on My Lambton. I'm probably going to be saying that a lot, just FYI, because pretty much everything is there. And so as far as paying your tuition deposit, same thing. I'm going to sound like a broken record. Go to My Lambton, go to registration and finances, and then there's a making a payment button there. That'll show you all the ways you can pay your fees. The one we typically recommend is the second one, which we've got in this screenshot here. It's a bill payment through your bank account. So that's when you would set up college as a payee through your online banking and send the money off that way. It's a little bit slower than paying directly on My Lambton, but it works with every bank, and it's just like, it's the most reliable way, so that's the one that we typically recommend. Another one, we won't touch on this too much, but for field or clinical placements, if your program has any placements, you'll have to do stuff most likely like a background check. You might have to get certain vaccinations. You might have to get some kind of paperwork completed. If your program has that, we'll be sending you emails about it at some point over the summer. I forget exactly when, but we will send email reminders about it. And you can also find that on My Lambton under a different spot for once. It's under the student menu. So if you go to My Lambton and go to students, there's a field and clinical placement link there, and you can find all the information for your program there.
So before you go any further, we just have a question. Somebody wants to know if they're able to come to the college to pay the fees by Visa instead of sending it on through like their banking app.
Good question. There's actually a couple things there. So we actually have a policy where you can't pay full-time fees with a credit card. So it would have to be either, off the top of my head, either debit or like a bank transfer, like the bill payment, or you could also do a certified check. Right now, the college is totally closed, but we haven't gotten any for sure dates yet. So I mean, don't quote me on this. But last September, we were open for the end of August and through September for some in-person appointments, and we were doing fee payments then. So you could most likely come in and pay the rest of your fees closer to the start of class, but you wouldn't be able to pay with a Visa.
And with the deposit due June 21st, they'd likely have to pay that one before the school were to open. right?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I haven't heard of us opening back up
Yeah.
at all anytime soon. Like I said, actually, since we're talking about the deposit too, I did mention, I think I mentioned there should be a waiver. If you're going to be getting OSAP and you aren't sure you'll be able to make the deposit payment, there's a waiver that you can apply for that, as long as you are going to be getting enough OSAP to cover it, you don't have to pay the deposit. OSAP assessments aren't out just yet, so this is probably a good time to touch on that quickly. You can still submit a waiver even if you don't have an OSAP assessment yet. You'll just have to make sure that when the assessment does come in, there's enough to cover the deposit. And then just to talk about scheduling, I think that was actually one of the questions we got. With scheduling, a lot of people ask, like, how do they choose their schedule? And for the most part, you really don't. We'll give you like a preloaded schedule. If you're in a really big program, there might be, you know, like 3 or 4 or 5 versions of that schedule. Something to keep in mind is they're essentially all the same. As much as possible, we try and keep the schedules consistent with one another. So, you know, someone might have like math in the morning and chem in the afternoon, and someone else might have those reversed, but the times are going to be really similar. There are a few programs that can choose their schedule, but you're not picking course by course. You're picking from like a preloaded schedule, like one of multiples. If you're in one of those programs, you'll definitely get emails about that. That's something we're kind of phasing in, like a few programs at a time. So something to know too about the schedule and your fees. So you need to have your deposit paid to be able to get your schedule when they come out. So that's one question we get a lot is I can't see my schedule. So schedules typically won't come out likely until late July at the earliest. But if you can't see your schedule and you think you should, one good thing to always check is make sure you've paid your deposit. And as far as scheduling goes, the one thing you will have to choose yourself for sure are general electives. Every program will have at least one general elective. You can check your program map to see how many you'll have and when you're supposed to take them. They're kind of, even though that specific, whatever specific course you take isn't built into your schedule, that elective for that term is factored into your term fees and your course load. So it's always good to check your program map and see when your electives are. We do send out email reminders, but just to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, it's always good to take a look and see. Every semester, when it's time to register for a gen ed, we'll email you and let you know when registration opens up, and you'll be able to see the courses that are available that semester on My Lambton. Transfer credits is another big one that we get leading up to class. So there's a lot of stuff here I'm not going to get too much into. Basically, you can apply for transfer credits on My Lambton, go to registration and finances, transfer credit request. It'll walk you through all the steps there, so I won't go into it too much now. The one thing I do want to mention ahead of time is one of the things you need to submit when you apply for a transfer credit is a detailed course outline from the school you took the previous course at. That detailed, most people don't have those lying around. They have to request them from the school. So the detailed course outline, you know, has to have like the schedule of like when the material is going to be delivered. It has to have learning outcomes, testing methods. So I wanted to really touch on that just because a lot of people don't have them and have to ask for them. So that's something to keep in mind is if you have some transfer credits you think you'd like to apply for, take a look and see if you have course outlines from when you took them, and if not, give your old school a shout. The dean's office typically has those archived and they can send them to you. So enrollment verification letters, a lot of people ask about these. So these are, you know, if you have, say, like RESPs you want to take out or something like that, you have to have confirmed your offer and you have to be able to see your tuition fees to be able to get an enrollment letter. The whole reason behind that is because when we convert you from an applicant to a student, we add your fee information for your program. And so when you can see your fees on My Lambton, that's kind of the trigger to know that you've been converted to a student status and you're kind of set up to get registered. So when you can see your fees, you can download an enrollment letter on My Lambton. To do that, you just go to registration and finances, and there's an enrollment letter button right in that top menu there. And you can download as many as you need. So for health insurance, a lot of people ask about this. Every student gets health insurance by default. So they're included in your regular tuition fees. So what happens is we kind of charge that initial fee, and then if you already have coverage, you can opt out. So to do that, that's done through the actual insurance company though. So you'll get charged right away, and then if you want to opt out, the insurance company will refund you. So we'll send emails about when the opt-in and opt-out period opens up. You can either opt out if you already have coverage, or if you have family members you want to opt in, you can do that too. The period will likely be something like the beginning of September till the end of September, but we'll send emails out with exact dates closer to. If you do want to opt out or opt someone in, you do it through the insurance company, which is called We Speak Student. So you can go to wespeakstudent.com if you want to read up on them. I don't think they'll have all the coverage information out yet, but it's worth kind of poking around. But like I said, once the opt-in and opt-out period opens up, we'll send you a ton of emails reminding you. So right now, if you want to get a hold of us, the best way to do it is to send an email. We're not taking in-person appointments right now. I'm guessing we will be taking some in September, but we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. So yeah, right now you can either send us an email by finding the contact on My Lambton and picking your program from the dropdown. You can also call our office. We're only able to make outgoing calls from home, but we do actually have sort of like a call center that's running, and they can answer some like more basic questions. And if there's anything they need help with, they'll escalate your call to us. All right, and we're going to talk about financial aid a little bit too. I normally don't do this part of the presentation, so like bear with me if I'm a little bit rusty on stuff. But right in the registration. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. If before you get into financial aid, we had a question of if somebody has to pick gen eds, is there somebody that they can speak to, or would that be like, do they go to the ESP, or how can they get help with picking their course content?
That's an awesome question because there's someone specifically for that. So once Gen Ed registration opens up, we should send out an email. It should be included in the Gen Ed notification email, but that'll be Tammy, who works in student success. And during the registration period and like kind of before and after Gen Eds open up, one of the things she does is specifically help students pick Gen Eds. So one of the big things is she can make course recommendations if you're not sure. And the other major thing is she'll help you find one that can fit into your schedule. That's not as much of an issue right now because most of the Gen Eds are online. Right. But the odd online one is still has like a set time that it runs. So she can help you pick that and help you find one that works with your schedule.
Perfect.
To get in financial aid a little bit too. So right now, the office actually, it's like registration. It's why it's called registration and finances. Is financial aid is part of the registrar's office now. They used to be two separate ones, and that's partly because you go to your ESP for all of that stuff. But if you go to My Lambton registration and finances, there's an OSAP button there. There's two. There's OSAP and there's financial aid. Financial aid kind of encompasses everything from like OSAP to scholarships and bursaries and part-time jobs, which we'll get to. And then the OSAP menu is just for OSAP, but you can find kind of everything there and see like an overview of all that's available. And so for OSAP, the application's actually done through OSAP. In case anyone's not familiar with it, it's a mix of loans and grants. So some of the money you have to pay back and some of it you don't. And usually if you get some grants, it can be pretty significant, like in the thousands of dollars. So it's definitely worth applying for sure. Right now you can apply, but they're not releasing assessments just yet. I think that's supposed to happen either the end of this month or early next month, but it kind of can vary from year to year with OSAP. Once you get approved, your funding doesn't get released until closer to the start of class after you've got your schedule. One of the notes in here is reviews. So that's if you ever have any kind of more serious change you need to do, like say you have, if you only live with one parent and you want to get assessed as only living with one parent, that's something we can help with. So basically, if there's anything you're not sure about with your OSAP application, just send your ESP an email. That's why we're here. We can definitely help with that. As far as repayment goes, so you have a 6-month grace period after your classes end, where you don't have to make payments, and then the repayment will automatically start at the end of those 6 months. One question we get a lot is like the summer break. You're not in school. The nice thing there is it's only 4 months typically, so you're not going to enter repayment. The odd program has an 8-month co-op, and so some students aren't able to get a co-op and they have an 8-month break. In that case, by default, You will start making payments after 6 months, but it'll only be 2 months of payments, and then once you're enrolled in the next semester, they'll stop. And if you're having trouble making those, you can apply for repayment assistance. And one of the lines in here forgot to be updated because OSAP applications are available now. So for scholarships and bursaries, those are two separate things. Scholarships are usually based on your academic achievements or community involvement and stuff like that. And bursaries are more based on financial need. Both of them are free money. Definitely apply. The bulk of the bursaries that we have, it's not like there's one available, there are multiples. The one you should definitely look at is the general bursary, which starts at $500, and it's for everyone who can demonstrate a financial need, which you would just do by filling out an informal budget online. As far as scholarships, tons of them don't get filled because no one applies, so definitely take a look at those and apply for everyone you think you might be eligible for. You can go into My Lambton, there's a scholarships and bursaries menu, and there's two things you can do. You can choose your program and you can see the ones that are specific to your program. You can also set it to all programs and see the ones that are open to anybody. There's quite a few of them there, like there's a couple pages worth, but I definitely recommend taking some time to look through them because there might be some that have some pretty unique qualifications that not a lot of people would qualify for. So it's definitely worth looking through and seeing if any of those apply to you. Some of them can be pretty significant, like in the thousands of dollars. There are also some other options available, like you could get a loan through a bank if you need help paying for it. There are also some scholarships that we're not involved with, so like Scholarships Canada and Scholarships Ontario. If you look those up, you can find some other ones that are more government run. Like I said, we're not involved with those, so I don't know as much about them, but it's worth checking those out for sure. So for resources too, this is not all related to OSAP in particular, but more so financial need. So we have tutoring for students, and that's free. There's also a food bank. One of the things that you get as a full-time student is access to like counseling and accessibility, which we'll get into later. There are also some community, for anyone who's not familiar with it, there's some community resources available like the Inn of the Good Shepherd and the Salvation Army that can help you out with like food and housing and clothing and stuff like that. So student work programs is a big one for sure. It's really cool. So there's jobs available specifically for students while they're in school. So there's two of them. There's work study and EBAT. Work study is a part-time job during the school year while you're in school, and then EBAT is a full-time job over the summer. Other than that, they're essentially the same thing. It's definitely worth checking these out. It's a really awesome experience, especially if you want a part-time job while you're in school. One of the benefits of doing like the work study for your part-time job is the fact that like we're the school that you're in, you know, and so we know how much your education matters, and so, you know, the departments are all really flexible with your hours, and they make sure that it's not impacting your school at all. The other thing is it's a really cool foot in the door. Like something like 6 or 7 people in the registrar's office all started off as student workers. So like it's a great thing to put on your resume, worst case scenario, but if you like it, you know, you never know, it could lead to a job at the college too. And the last thing on the presentation is budgeting. And so if you are having trouble at all making a budget, that's one of your things your ESP can help you with. We can help you, you know, find ways to save money. Like we can go through your budget with you and help you find ways to like make your money go a bit further. We can also help you make and manage a budget if you've never done that before. And I believe that is the end of the slideshow.
Thanks, Phil. I do see a couple of questions that we can go over, some that I have from our social channels, but then also some from the live here. Cool. So one of them, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Can we use OSAP to pay for residence?
Yes, you can. I don't want to say too much about residence right now because it just changed recently, and I hate to say something that's not super accurate. Yeah, you can definitely pay. You definitely use your OSAP to pay for residence for sure, and that's one of the things is OSAP factors in the cost of living into your assessment. They don't look at necessarily if you're going to be in residence versus renting a house. Like they don't get that granular. They have kind of a flat rate cost of living, but they do look into that, and most people who qualify for OSAP do tend to get above and beyond what their tuition and books cost to help with that. The one thing I do know, we just had an update is, so for tuition, if you're getting OSAP, your the tuition deadline is like later on to accommodate for OSAP getting released, whereas the residence does have separate deadlines. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, you can use your OSAP to help pay for residence for sure.
Perfect. I thought I saw another one, but maybe I did not. Okay, so some questions that we received from socials that you definitely touched on, but maybe we could elaborate a little bit further. So what would happen if somebody were to come into a program in September and then maybe after first semester realize that there's something that they were more interested in, and then they would maybe want to switch programs, or they found a program that they didn't know really existed, and then they started learning about it once they were here, so now they want to switch into that program?
For sure, that definitely happens a lot, and it's really good. I'd say the first thing to do is reach out to your ESP, because we can kind of give you like a quick snapshot of where things are. One thing that'll most likely happen is we'll end up referring you partly to counseling. Because one thing people don't realize, I think, about counseling is they offer a ton of services like academic advising. They'll do program advising and stuff like that. So they offer a lot of stuff that's not just related to, like mental health. The big thing there is just because you're changing programs, you might not have to start over from scratch. There's a good chance that at least some of the courses you took in your previous program will count towards your new program. So us kind of together with counseling, we can help you make a plan to transfer over to that new program as efficiently as possible and get the most out of the courses you did take. And also, if you've got a light enough course load going into your new program, you might be able to work ahead, so we can help